Good morning. It's 5 a.m. in WA, Western Australia, and it's just beautiful. It's quiet, there's not a breeze outside, I can't hear even the birds. It's cool, not chilly, but cool. And I find this is the best part of the day for me to get up and do things, whether it's exercise, whether it's doing a podcast, listening, reading, meditating. Today, what I'd like to talk about is what I finished off with last time. Last time I said that I would talk about when I went through PTSD. I turned 60 this year, and prior to what happened when I was 58 is that I never understood PTSD. And like all of us, we often go, oh yeah, it's okay, we understand. We should never say we understand unless we have gone through it. I've definitely tried to do that, especially after losing my husband, because unless you have walked people's shoes, you don't understand. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest, and I used to think that PTSD or depression or anxiety is that you could be pragmatic, just deal with it and move on. Just deal with it. That's fine. I do that in a lot of things. After Bruce and after he had died, I couldn't do that. I learned about depression in a very different way that I was able to move on. I'm not saying that all depression is the same. Don't get me wrong. I know it's not. But the depression of grief is really hard. And the only person who can pull you out of it is you. So I learned all of that. What happened, and when people have PTSD, you think, oh, okay, well, they're having a problem, getting over it. That's what I thought. So I'm going to tell you about what happened 2 years ago. My husband and I, we had got a big Marama dog. So if you know the movie Oddball, it's the Marama in there that looks after the penguins. So my cousin had a farm, they were selling the farm, and they had this Marama. He was 6.5 years old, beautiful dog, big. He was, 65, almost 70 kilo. Big, beautiful male dog. And he used to look after the cows. So he would live out with the animals. Because they were going to sell the farm and this was going to be part, he was part of their lives. They wanted him to go to a good home. So we went, well, I've always had big fluffy dogs. I've had St. Bernards and loved them. We've got Alaska Malamute now. And so we went down and we had a look, and our dog got on well with him. We thought, fantastic, we'll bring him home. So we, did everything you do. He'd been on the farm for all these years. So we gave him some shots because he was going to be with our dog. We bathed him, groomed him, loved him, and he was just wonderful. We had him for 6 months. And a couple of times during there, I should have tweaked, but he growled a couple of times. And he had been out on his own for 6.5 years, where he was the boss of looking after the animals, and that's what his job was. When he came to us, we didn't have any animals except the other dog. So he was lost, which we didn't understand. He was great though. He loved being brushed, he loved being cuddled, he loved being cared for and walked. And then this one particular day, I'll go back a week, the fires in Woolloomooloo and Gidgigana all started on the 1st of February. And it was also the week of lockdown. So we were in lockdown, we had fires going, and I had people staying here who couldn't get onto their property. At the end of that week, on the Saturday, we were going to try and get my dad back onto the property where he was living at the time. And it was early morning. We thought, try and do that. Didn't work, so we come home. My husband had been packing up his business and bringing it home. So he had a spray painting business, and over 3 months he had been building and continuing, tweaking his shed to bring everything home. So he would leave in the morning, very early in the morning, pack up his trailer and everything from down there, bring a load home, unload it, go back down at lunchtime and do the same that night, unload it, and then go back in the morning. Well, this particular day, on the Friday when he came home, he said, I'm so tired, I can't do it tonight. I'll do it in the morning. So on the Saturday morning, I went to take Dad to the property. We couldn't get through. It was still blocked off, so we come home. Terry was working and unloading the trailer, which he would normally have done the night before. I went up to let him know that we were home, and as I was walking back from the shed to the house, the 2 dogs were mucking around. I was hungry and I really needed something to eat. And with having big dogs, I've never turned my back on them because they're big. You've got to know where they are. Not for that they would attack you or anything like that. It's just knowing where they are because they're big, So I did, and I headed straight to the house. In the meantime, the dogs were mucking around, and Hamish, the big white marama, bumped into me and knocked me over. In that, he fractured my ankle. As I tried to get up, I fell on him, and that's when the attack started. He thought he was being attacked. In that, their natural instinct in the Maramas is to protect. Now, he had been with Nala, our Alaska Malamute, for 6 months. We've found out since that he was probably trying to protect her and himself at the same time. So as I tried to come up, he grabbed my elbow, my right elbow. He latched onto that with his teeth. And as I tried to move around, he let go of that and I moved over because I had hurt my ankle, and I rolled back onto the ground as he got up. He grabbed hold of my left shoulder and a big bite marks on both sides of my shoulder. Then I don't remember, it just happened so quickly, but I must have been moving around somehow. But then he grabbed my head. My whole head was now in his mouth. I found out later, but the bottom jaw was on my left side of the face, and his top jaw was at the back of my head. So he had pretty much half of my head in his mouth. I can't remember screaming. I know I was screaming, and my husband heard me, and he came bolting down from the shed. He saw the visuals of me laying on the ground, this big white dog standing and straddling over me with my head in his mouth, and I'm screaming. I've never heard myself scream, and I still, to this day, 2 years later, can't hear myself scream. But I've been told I will one day, or I may never. While I was laying there, all I could feel was his warm breath and the growling that I've never heard before obviously in a dog fight. And it was terrifying. At first, I thought he was mucking around, and I realised that it wasn't. In that, I could feel my head shaking as how dogs grab a toy and they shake it. That's what he was doing to my head, shaking. I could hear the growling, I could feel his breath, and I could feel the shaking, but I had no pain. And that's the weird thing about it. I don't remember any pain. I don't remember my husband pulling him off me. I don't remember any sound, but he came off, and I never saw that Terry was there. My elderly dad, walked around the other side of the car and obviously had heard it, and he helped me up, and it was pain then in my ankle that I really felt as we were limping back to the house. The mind is a funny thing, but while I was limping back with my dad, all I could think of, it's raining, and it wasn't raining, but I realised later it was all the blood running down the back of my neck. We got inside, and he sat me on the chair, and I had instant relief off my ankle. And I looked down, and already there was a pool of blood everywhere, on the floor, down my shirt. I could feel it trickling down my face and down my neck. I'm very calm in an emergency. And I picked up my phone and I took photos of my face, and I could see some big gouges on the left side of my face. I didn't realise what had happened at the back, and I didn't realise that I had the teeth marks on my elbow and my shoulder. We called the ambulance and told them what happened. The police had also arrived because we told them we had called my son, and we had to put the dog down. So all of that happened. We went to the hospital. We got operated on that night, and we spent a few days in hospital, and then we came home. And I had to be off my ankle for a good couple of months. So I was laid up pretty much for 2.5 months. The way the fracture was that if I trod on or stood on my foot, it would spread open, and then I would have trouble with my ligaments. So I had to be non-weight bearing at all and have my legs up. Meanwhile, I put on weight, and all these people had come round. All my beautiful friends and family had cooked and gave us this food. And of course, I'm sitting back and enjoying life and eating this good food. I had started having a few nightmares, but I was okay. I sort of got up and, woke myself up and went, I'm safe. It wasn't till I started getting back to work, and I worked from home, getting back to work and starting to venture out a little bit with my ankle now healed, that I started to get the shakes. And I would get a bit of a shake and I'd start to tear up, and I thought, oh my goodness, what's happening? And when Nala was outside and she would run past me, I would almost go into, it's hard to describe, but I would shake and I would cry, and I would just inconsolable crying. And I've never done that before, and it came over me, this wave of emotions came over me that normally I can control, but I couldn't control this. And I was trying so hard, and my husband saying, it's okay, you've been through a lot. So I started getting back out and everything, but this was getting a little worse. And I found that my anger was coming up. It's very rare that I get angry, but this was an anger like I've never experienced before. It was an anger where I wanted to kill someone. It was an anger where I wanted to destroy something, hit something, and I've never had that before, and my fear actually scared me. I found that I rang a girlfriend, and I just couldn't stop crying on the phone to her. And she is a nurse, and she helped me, and she said, Kerry, you need mental health, assessment. You need to get some help. So I rang the doctors to see if I could get in. They said, yep, no worries. Got down there, and they said, no, it's for the week after. I lost it. I totally lost it at them, and I would never do that. I got in the car and I hit the steering wheel. I screamed and yelled. I got in the car and realised that if I don't control what I'm doing now, I'm literally going to hurt someone. I drove around in a quiet area and I found where someone had recommended this psychologist or this counsellor. I pulled into their car park. Went into their back door, and I could hear people talking, but not what they were about. Hear voices in the front room. And I sat there for 40 minutes, calming myself, sobbing, and trying to find me. I know that sounds hard when you hear people saying I had to find me, but it's the only way I can describe it. I had to find me to be able to be calm enough to drive home, that I'm not going to smash into anyone or hurt anyone. So I did. I got home. I rang my girlfriend and said I couldn't get in. So I tried another clinic and I got in to see this doctor. When I got in to see her and she started to talk, I started to cry. And she took me through the whole scenario of what I had been through. Then she did the questionnaire. And the questionnaire was about 35 points, which means I was highly depressed. I had high anxiety. I had suicidal thoughts. And I couldn't control my emotions. So she gave me this referral to this specialist, and she also gave me things that I had to do myself, that I had to start to do positive reassurance. I'm not scared of dogs. I'm very aware of dogs, but I'm not scared of them, and it hasn't made me scared of other dogs. If I see any dogs fighting on the TV, I have to turn away straight away, or a dog attack. And that will send my, anxiety high. So I had this appointment, but because of COVID, it was hard to get into to them. So I left a voicemail. And she got back to me, this counsellor got back to me, and she gave me some things to do before I could get in to see her. So between speaking to her and to the doctor, I had exercises to do. I started to do them, but it was helping, but not enough. I felt like I just couldn't cope with life. I would work during the day, and then they'll give me something to do, but then I would fall into a heap in the evening, or I'd cry at the drop of a hat, or I would snap at someone, or I'd drive erratically on the road. I just found that everything that I did wasn't who I was. Once I got into seeing the counsellor, and we worked through a number of things, I said to her, I do that with my clients. And she said, yeah, it's the same thing in a different way. I learned a lot about me, how I cope with things, how I now understand PTSD, of the trauma of what has happened, and then slowly how to make sense of it. I totally am in awe of people who have been through it for whatever reason and come out the other end. Some people can't, and I don't know why, and I don't ever presume to know why. I am a person who likes to work on myself and to better myself, and I did these exercises with her. We had about 6 or 7 sessions with her. It might have been about more. So over a period of 6 months, I was working on me, she was working on me, and I could notice a difference. My sister-in-law and I and my husband and her husband were out on the backyard and we're picking some lemons. And I couldn't be, prior to all that, I couldn't go outside without my husband with me to hold on to me in case Nala, our other dog, ran past, because it would just set me off. Not for the fact that she was running past or there, I learnt that it was the fact of being scared of being knocked over. That's what scared me, because that's how the attack happened. And so once I learnt that, I had to hold on to someone. So my husband and his brother-in-law were over a bit further. My sister-in-law was within about an arm's distance from me. And Nala ran straight past, and I didn't hear her. She went straight past me and just got my hackles up. It was just, it's hard to describe, but I just felt like that I wasn't coping again. So I grabbed hold of my sister-in-law's arm, and then I talked to myself. And I went, "It's okay, Kerry. She's just running past. You are safe. You are fine. You're not in any danger. You're not being knocked over. She's just being a dog, just heading to her chair, her bed where she sits." And I talked myself out of it, and I slowly started breathing properly and not the shallow breaths, and speaking virtually how I'm speaking now is how I learnt to cope through the PTSD. And the thing is that I've told my clients to do this. If they're with a client that is aggravating them or something's not going right, I always say, just excuse yourself. Say, "Sorry, just one moment. I just have to check on something." Go out. They don't know that you're going outside to, have a little rant or rave or take some big deep breaths, have a glass of water, and then coming back inside. So this is virtually, I was doing exactly the same that I taught my clients to do, but in a different way. So I slowly got better and better and better. Then I was able to, so we're pretty much nearly 12 months down the track that I was now able to walk outside with my dog, always knowing where she is and being okay. I have a girlfriend who has a whole lot of Ridgebacks. She breeds Ridgebacks. I still haven't been to her house in 2 years. Not for the fear of the dogs, but it's just the fear of being knocked over. But that'll be my final challenge, is to go to her place. I've set myself little challenges all the way. I've set myself little things to help me cope with what I went through. So what ended up happening with my face is that it tore big chunks out of my left side of my face. And the surgeon we had was really awesome, great plastic surgeon, that she stitched it all up, all from the inside, that I can hardly see a scar. Once that was starting to heal, I used vitamin E oil and put on it. And you can hardly see anything. At the back of my neck, where the teeth marks were at the back, apparently his teeth just scraped my main vein, that it was a minor little tear, but not enough to cause me to die. If my husband wasn't home that day, I would not have been here, because the dog would have kept going until I was dead, because that's their natural instinct. And for those that are listening saying, why did we put down the dog? The number one reason is that I've got grandchildren, and you can't have a dog that is attacked like that and then keep them around with children. When the police came around and spoke to my son, he said that he was going to put the dog down, and the police were 100% in agreement and said yes, and they were very happy for him to do that and for the reasons why. I love animals. I haven't stopped loving animals. I love dogs. I'm just wary of where they are to where I am. It's taken me, it's 2 years down the track. We're now on the 29th of December 2022. So on the 6th of February next year, 2023, it'll be 2 years. I'm okay. I'm good. I've come out of it. I've learnt a lot. I've learnt how to help myself the way I help my clients, but not understanding that prior. I now understand PTSD as I still have it slightly, but it's still there, but I can control it now. I get a little anxious if I know that we're going somewhere where there are dogs, but I can now breathe myself through it. Because with anxiety is a feeling. You can't control your feelings. Your feelings are what they are, but you can control how you react to it. And so when anyone is going through an anxiety, or you've got a meeting coming up that is making you a little anxious, or all of these things. And the other thing is that anxiety isn't bad. It's a good thing. We know when we get married or have a date, or, something's really wonderful. You're heading down because a new grandchild's being born. Anxiety is a good thing. It's the other side where we can feed it if it is the wrong anxiety, like mine with the dogs, or I get, a little anxious with knowing there's dogs where we're going. So the thing is that I now talk myself through it. The feeling comes up, and I know it's a feeling, and I tell myself in my head, it's okay, Kerry, the feeling will go. You are calm, you are safe, you are fine, you're not in any danger. Keep breathing and you'll be fine. And it will go. And I've learnt to do that now, that within a couple of minutes, the anxiety is gone. So whatever anxiety you are going through, you can do the same. After that, I did a course on the Dr. Neil Nedley Anxiety and Depression course. It was one of the best things I've ever done. So I'm now able to help people. I'm not saying that I am a counsellor or a psychologist. I'm not, and I don't ever pretend to be. And they have a purpose, and they are absolutely wonderful. I can help in a different way, where foods and different things will help with it, because alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, marijuana, all of that feeds anxiety and depression. And too much coffee, and it's cutting those things out or cutting them down. That will help. There's a lot of things that I realise that, I've had to cut out a lot more sugar and bits more things, and I'm still trying to lose the weight that I put on while I was laid up for those few months. So that is my story on the dog attack that happened on the 6th of February 2021. It's been hard. It's been an amazing lesson to learn. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about PTSD, a lot about anxiety, a lot about depression. I've learned who my friends are. I've learned who are there for me. I have learnt that I am stronger than I thought. I learnt that I can control the world from my bed, that I had my laptop and my Netflix, and I signed up 2 clients while I was laid up. I learnt that I can work, cope, while going through all of this. I realised that I can't do it alone. You have to have people with you. 100% of people you can trust, that you are comfortable with, that you can cry in front of, tell them how you're feeling. It's important to have that. But the only person who can start the journey is you. You need to start it. You need to seek out some help. You need to talk to yourself. Take some deep breaths. Do some exercises. What do you need to do to help you cope through whatever it is you have gone through? Mine obviously hasn't taken years because it was a short event. And I'm not going to even pretend to understand those that have been to war when they've been at war for years and seen things, because it will take years to unsee and unlearn what they have learnt and how they're feeling. I don't understand a lot of things of what people are going through. What I do understand is what I went through, how I have coped, how I have come out the other end, and what I need to do for myself to keep going. What do I need in my life to give me enjoyment? What do I need in my life to add to my life, to keep me getting up in the morning, to keep me going, to help with my clients? What is it that I need to help me cope with my life? So in that, I hope you get something out of it. I hope you have understood a little more about me and what I'm going through, what I've been through. And so when I speak from experience. I don't speak about things that I haven't gone through or don't know about. It's authenticity. Put my teeth in. It's authenticity. I still can't get it right. So some days you just have to laugh. I just know that I love what I do. I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm great, and I love my life. Please send me a message, an email, a phone call. I would love to hear from you. Enjoy your day. Do what you need to for you to cope with your life. Have a wonderful day. I'm Kerry Hawtrow, and my business is brain thinking.